But before we expand to all the conversations we have today, let's begin from what will be happening in the next 48 hours in Ekiti State, southwest Nigeria. It's an off-cycle election where the people of the state have a decision to make. Ekiti decides. They either keep the job of the incumbent who is seeking re-election, or they take him out and bring in somebody else if they feel it's not done a good job. 16 local government areas, over 170 wards, over 1 million people registered to vote, and almost 2,500 polling units. Our eyes as Channels Television will be at these places to bring you up to speed. So Saturday is a good day for you to be close to your television or to the devices with which you get information from Channels. Let's bring in the Head of Knowledge Management and Learning at YIAGA Africa, Sophia Bichi, joins us virtually from Ado, Ekiti, the state capital. Sophia, thank you for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
So how is Ekiti? Let's begin. I'm sure maybe by now you would have eaten pounded yam, Ekiti, and you know they like pounded yam in Ekiti State. But just so give us an update of what we need to know as preliminary to the deeper conversation.
Yeah, I think for me, the most important thing is for us to know that this will be the first election that will be conducted under the new Electoral Act 2026. And this gives us the opportunity to test some of the provisions in the Act, especially electronic transmission of results and other new administrative reforms that came into being after the last general elections. Again, the new regulation and guidelines for elections that was developed after the passage of this new Electoral Act has made some significant provisions, such as primary verification of election result, which brings about the use of electronic from ECAP, that's electronic result form. What this means is that for the first time, the ad hoc staff or the presiding officers at the polling units will be able to type in the election results while they snap the result as they used to do to upload into the IRS, then compare the results. And this is a new introduction that is being done by INEC. So this is an opportunity for us to test some of these provisions. Remember that aside the upcoming Osun governorship elections, this will be the only elections that will give us opportunity to make some of these tests and to also make all the necessary amendments we need to do ahead of the 2027 elections, which is less than 7 months away from now.
All right, so talk to us about the preparedness of INEC. I know that this is the second election, but this is the first governorship election under the, I think, Electoral Act, if I stand to be corrected, or under the current leadership of Joash Amopiton. In terms of preparation by INEC, what feelers are you getting? I was in Anambra the last time, and I know that they have more local government, more wards, and more registered voters. But by, say, 8 a.m., a day after the election, which was a Sunday morning, in fact, I saw that the result was already being announced from the INEC secretaries in Anambra State. So everything was literally, you know, one straight move. So in terms of preparations, what do you see?
Yeah, in terms of preparations, we've seen that INEC has, based on its timetable, conducted majority of the activities on the timeline. I think 2 are left ahead of the elections, which is the deployment of election materials from the CBN, which is happening today, as well as activation of the rack centers that is happening tomorrow between 12 noon to 6 p.m. according to INEC. And we've seen INEC also conduct the mock accreditation exercise for as they have stated, though we observe some of this exercise, including the training of election materials. But if you have seen our report of the mock accreditation exercise, we've also highlighted and noted the lack of full implementation of some of the provisions of the 2026 Electoral Act. But again, to say that in terms of the environment is relatively peaceful for now, and we encourage citizens to continue and political parties to continue in this direction. You've also talked about the past election. Truly, the last elections, specifically the 2022 governorship elections, is one of the elections in that year that finished a bit early, which is commendable. And we also know that Ekiti has just 16 states, which also make it very possible to. But we know that there are other underlying factors, such as security threats, especially the insecurity around the state. We've had cases of kidnapping in some part of the state, which we think might also create some fears in the minds of the citizens. But generally, for INEC, we commend INEC for what they've done thus far, and not to relent, not to sit back, to ensure that the perennial logistics challenges we have in our election day management is also averted.
I'm glad that you've had to mention the issues around the security challenges there, the issues around banditry, heather farmer clashes, which we've seen perhaps we believe is going to define these elections. Well, Jeff and I were having a conversation as to how many candidates we have for these governorship elections. INEC, I think, says 14. I've seen
13.
13. So confirm that we have, for now it's 13.
For now.
For now, 13.
We know that it's 13. It was 12 until PDP joined. It was 12 until PDP joined. And based on the list, we have 13. And it's interesting to note that of all the 13 political parties, none of them fielded a female candidate or even a person with disability as a candidate for this election. So this also tells us how inclusive our political parties are when it comes to election representation.
Who do we hold responsible for that, Mrs. Bichi? Because Bichi, I'm not sure exactly now. Who do we hold responsible? Women, I think, have more numbers. So why are the women not able to coordinate themselves and pick one person to represent them? I think we have, yes, you said 13 candidates, all males. I think we have about 16 female candidates earlier on as deputy governors and all of that. But who do we hold responsible?
The political parties, because if we're talking about inclusion, political parties are institutions that need to put on measures to encourage women to participate and even people with disability to participate, because election is all about inclusion. And you rightly say that we have a large population of a large part of our population are women, so why should we also go into this without women? And if you look at the statistics, day in, day out, the number of women in representative office is reducing by the day. So political parties, and that's where affirmative action comes in. There's where other legal framework and other intentional actions need to come in, so that you can have more of certain groups of people that have long-term been marginalized be part of this, because participation is beyond voting. It's also being seen and being heard and being visible.
Mrs. Safia, let's look at all politics. They say is local. So I'm wondering, from the analytics that YIAGA and other CSOs have done from the situation room, besides the logistics, the process, which is what the CSOs are really all about, ensuring that the process is followed through in compliance with INEC guidelines and the Electoral Act as amended. What issues do you think will impact choices as far as this election is concerned?
To my mind, the first issue will be economic factors. Just on Monday, we went for community sensitization in some markets in the state, especially the biggest market in Ekiti. And part of the feelers we got, it was a sensitization meeting for people to turn out on election and also share some of the information about the elections, especially as it's being shared from INEC. But some of the feelers we got is that people are a bit unhappy with their economic situation. So believe me, this might be one of the factors that will determine people's actions and behaviors in the election space. Then secondly is insecurity, especially in local governments that have faced insecurity activities in recent times. Local government like Mobile, local government like Lejimiji, where kidnappings happen. If you go there, as at last week, by 7 p.m., community members are not, you won't see much people outside, and this is because of the fear those incidents have created. But it's nice to also know that the police and INEC has assured, they both have assured citizens of their safety, and the fact that everything within the elections and during the election period will be done to ensure the safety of both voters and all election workers. So insecurity, one, economic factors, and will be the top contenders for me in this election. But again, you know how our election system is. People sometimes are not really looking at the issues. People are looking at what they can get at the moment. Yeah. While we are talking about these issues, there are people that are still waiting for what can I get at the moment? What can I get in terms of resource materials? And these are some of the factors. But we've seen that in the mock accreditation, as usual, that there was a low turnout. And we're also calling on political parties, especially today will be almost the last day it's even the last day for them to conduct their campaigns, to call on people to campaign and encourage people to turn out and vote. While political parties while civil society and INEC is doing that, but we think political parties should engage in turning out the vote. But in terms of issues, I personally have not seen serious debate about the key issues, even from political parties. It's just about we're coming back, and I cannot, the political parties are not even defining the key issues. It's just citizens' experiences that is defining the decider of the elections as against political campaign speech, political campaign engagement, because our campaigns to an extent are not very issue-based, and this is what we should encourage as we engage the next general elections. Aside the distractions we've been seeing in our society, just today's news review that you did a few minutes ago shows that there are lots of distractions that is not even making citizens to pay attention to the issues that will inform their decisions in elections.
I was going to ask you, as the head of knowledge management and learning, YIAGA Africa, how the people have had to receive your awareness campaigns. The second part of my question is, while you are busy and other CSOs trying to share knowledge and information and trying to, transform the minds of the residents, what are the parties sharing to them? Because you've mentioned that as well, that people are a bit concerned about what they get now. So what have you seen and heard that the parties are sharing to them? Rice, money?
Yeah, rice, money, and Indomie, and all these food items. People are sharing. People are making promises ahead of the elections. We've heard, I cannot confirm this, but we've also heard that some people are pledging and are giving down payments for now in the pre-election environment to make the balance payment after the elections. These are rumors. We don't know if it's true, but you know that lack of information is an indicator of election violence itself, because it might lead to disinformation, misinformation, or any form of information disorder that might lead to some violent action within the election system, as well as inform citizens' behavior or choices when it comes to elections. And that's why it looks like while political parties who are supposed to be interested in telling people, sharing information about the elections, because they are the beneficiaries of this vote. While they are busy doing some other things, we find it very important because these elections belong to us. It's not all about the political parties. And I also want to note that there's also an advantage in low turnout. There are times that people it favors some political class, because the more people turn out, the more likelihood the election will be more competitive, and there's a likelihood that some persons might not win the elections. And that's why you see people engage in sharing this information about the elections, people sharing fake information about candidates' participation, about timelines of elections, so that they can also discourage people from turning out. There are people that gain in deciding in some of this in the outcome of some of these actions, and that's what we're telling people. You also know that there's also a popular narrative in Nigeria, not just in Ekiti, that that your vote does not count, and we're telling young people especially that your vote counts, and because if your vote does not count, nobody will be there to buy it. And these are some of the words we're using to pacify and encourage citizens to engage in our election system.
Yeah, we're going to talk about voter apathy in a moment, but I want to quickly bring in the issue of security. Because for you and I, CSOs and journalists and all the neutral elements within the election, we're more interested in the process than who wins. Politicians are more interested in who wins and who loses. That's none of my business. Ours is the process itself. So in terms of security, what do you know? What do you see? What are you hearing?
Yeah, in terms of securities, because we have also engaged with the lead security agency in the state, as the police. The police stated that we are bringing in 12,000 officers and men into the state. Yesterday, I saw a lot of police convoy moving around town. And what I would say is that the security agencies need to also engage with some level of professionalism. Even the way some of the convoys were moving can also install some fear in citizens. So the police has assured us that they have their plans and they are seriously going to to protect the border town. Because particularly Ekiti, some local government in Ekiti know that most of the local governments that experience kidnapping recently border with some states like Kwara and other states. So the security agency said that they are on top of their game, and they are going to be deploying their officers and men to some of these locations. And like the police, the CP, that's the Commissioner of Police, stated during our meeting some days back, specifically on Monday, he stated that they're going to be implementing what they describe as the cycle theory, where they're going to have like three layers of security apparatus. Let me use that word. And he said that the soldier will be in the outer layer. They'll have the policemen in the inner layer. Then in the middle layer, I think that's where people like the MOPO will be there so that they can provide support. And they believe that this particular model will help them provide sufficient security. We've also learned that the DIG of the zone will be around for the elections. Other cities will be coming. Something close to saying that almost every local government will have CP manning them, and this is to ensure that the state is secure for elections. And you also will remember the history of election of security rascality in Ekiti elections, especially in 2014, where there were tensions in terms of, and also reports of lack of professionalism of police and security agencies in the state. But there are also agencies to say that in the last few months, in recent years, security agents have professionally elections. We encourage them to continue in that direction. Thank you.
Well, Sophia, we wish we can have more time. I was just looking at through the data of what the search engine provided for us in terms of voter turnout. I think the highest was in 2010 when Kaide Fayemi won. I think there was a rerun exercise, there was a court, and then I think later on, Ayo Fayose took over again from him. So he's been reducing, but the highest was 70-something% as at 2000 and 2010. But every other has been like 40-something%. The last I think was 30-something%.
Yeah, it's up to 40-something. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see whether this can be an improvement. We don't expect it to be a tough, rough. That's the word I wanted to use, a rough one. But Friday or Saturday will tell. So I must thank you for coming on the program. I wish you guys the best. Sophia Bichi, Head of Knowledge Management and Learning at YIAGA Africa. Thank you. All right, from here, we will talk about what's playing out in South Africa. In fact, we're going to be joining someone in South Africa to talk about these xenophobic attacks. I remember over 200 Nigerians have been brought back by the Nigerian government. Kudos to them for looking out for our citizens. And I remember the NITCOM chairman actually talking about, like, look, none of these persons are criminals. They're just doing their job. But because of the xenophobic attacks, people like places like Malawi, Zimbabwe, and other countries have literally been harassed out of that country. Or they are undocumented. Well, they would not like to use the word harass, but that's the way other Africans have seen it. And they've seen it play out in the World Cup supports and otherwise. But we're going to expand all of this conversation in just a moment. Stay with us.